Yeah, I'll just start off right off the top. When you said that the Ultimate Warrior's era was the Dark Ages on the jump, on the bump? Did you expect to get the kind of response that it's garnered so far?
I didn't follow up too much in the response, but nothing really got to me besides some people agreeing.
I think a lot of people agree. I just think it was, it's a Dark Ages that some might say WWE created back in the day. I mean, is that too much to say?
I meant the Dark Ages of wrestling. I mean, if a guy with tassels, face paint, and minimal wrestling skills holds the two prestigious titles in the business, then something's wrong. Like, yeah. How can you not get my point?
I love it, Gunther. Gunther, as a longtime wrestling fan, I feel like most fans of the WWE, if you would have asked them for the past 10 years, what's one thing you could change? It's something you just alluded to. It is the prestige of the Intercontinental Championship. Just bring it back, making it important, making it feel like a main event championship, like it did, unfortunately, during those dark ages of the Ultimate Warrior. I'd love to know your thoughts. Was that a goal that you had once you got to the main roster, or was that something that people were like, listen, this is a goal for you, and this is something that just sort of evolved over time? How did you look at the Intercontinental Championship when you first, joined WWE?
It wasn't like a specific goal. I said, I gotta go there and make that thing mean something or anything like that. But in general, I try to approach things when something, gets, when I'm responsible about, when I have the responsibility over something, then I'm gonna give it my best, and I'm gonna, commit myself to that.
Gotcha.
I'm not really a person or I try to be. It's like nobody's without failure. I either do things, I do them properly, or I don't do them at all. That was the same approach here. I think the reign so far has been, fantastic so far. Really good. I can't complain. I have a platform where I can, perform the way I want to and the way I think it's right. And everything developed very good.
Performing the way you want to is interesting. I was looking back over my favorite matches of your IC title reign, and it's a really long list. If you go back through the whole thing, there's names like Ricochet, obviously, Nakamura, Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, Xavier Woods. I love that match. Of course, Gable and Ciampa and Bronson Reed. Now you have a match against The Miz. This is the widest variety of opponents that's imaginable. When you go into this, pull the curtain back a little bit. When you start on a feud, or when you're looking ahead to a match with somebody, are you trying to get the best Gunther match out of that moment possible, or the best match that the two styles together can bring?
Even though I think there's a certain style for my matches, I like the matchups that are like the biggest mix-up, if that makes sense. If you look just at the wrestling aspect of it, for example, obviously like somebody like Chad Gable is the best opponent for me, because those kind of guys, like same with Riddle, or even like years ago, like Tim Thatcher, Zack Sabre Jr., those were always guys I love to wrestle, because they are just those naturally gifted grapplers that can really high skilled, and it just, goes very well with my style. But looking back to that, because you just said you enjoyed the match with Xavier Woods, for example, like just on paper, looking at that match, I wouldn't go like, oh, it's a natural fit, right? That's because he does something completely different. But for it to work out that way and get that response is fantastic. And I think Miz is another example where I'm really looking forward to that match, because it's a challenge for me. It's not just somebody where I know, okay, same style as I do. It's gonna work well. I know what I need to do. It's a little bit of a challenge, because he's a completely different kind of wrestler. I said it just the interview before, where I'm a good example of a guy that, I was in NXT for a little bit, but everything I have right now, the foundation of that, I built outside of WWE. He had nothing to do with them. The Miz on the other side is a prime example of how that development system of WWE just works so well, because he started with them. They basically trained, like they taught him everything he knows and everything, all his skills, and it worked out perfectly, because looking back at it now, he's one of the most successful superstars that have ever been in that company. So I think also with that background, it's a very interesting matchup. How does somebody that had a career, the careers are almost similarly long, but how does somebody that had most of his career outside of that company, that is success outside of the company, compared to somebody who's always been on that on the big platform? I think those situations are very interesting for me, because it's a little bit of, it's not like two worlds colliding, that's too much, but it's definitely two different approaches that collide. And I think taking that and mixing it up is always the most exciting for our fans, because if everything would be the same, it would be kind of boring.
You know, Gunther, you mentioned looking forward to this Miz match at the Survivor Series. And in years past, the Survivor Series sort of theme would sort of be facing off like counterparts. And if this was in years past, your opponent would probably be Logan Paul, who's now the United States champion. And he's a guy who is very much a quote unquote sports entertainer, but I think he's garnered a ton of respect over, you know, inside WWE, outside WWE, just for how quickly he's taken to the art of professional wrestling. I just love to know your thoughts on Logan Paul and what a match between you two would probably look like if it would ever come to pass.
So to the match itself, I would love to do that match. I think it would be very exciting. On him, so the thing in general with celebrities coming into our business and do their thing, for a while, like I always had like a little bit, when I saw something like that, it was a little bit like, is that necessary? Because in a lot of cases, it was just somebody coming in, whatever, getting paid or try to take the most out of it for them and then leave again. And I think with the celebrities we had recently, like Logan Paul, Bad Bunny, I think is a very good example as well. Those are guys that are obviously passionate about what we do. Like they enjoy it, they love it, and they have a high interest of contributing to it and not just going there and taking something out. So with that being said, I think, and I got a very positive opinion about Logan Paul. I think he helps everybody with wanting to do it, because he's got astronomical reach out there on the internet. He's very respectful, like he doesn't walk around and thinks it's a big deal or something. And the guy has an amazing career outside of WWE already. He's like basically self-made. And now he decided to, join us and give it a go there. And so far, I mean, he's the United States champion. So congratulations. I think he's done very well so far. And in general, very exciting to watch, very athletic, he's quite tall as well. He's got a great body, charismatic, can talk. He's not afraid of, showing off or showing out, if that makes sense. So it's a great addition for us.
Not speaking about Logan Paul in particular, but considering the career you've had, and I know that, you know, you've gotten a lot of questions over the years about the kind of physical transformation you've gone through. I think we've probably asked them too. But does anybody ever come to you from the office and say, and ask you to mentor new talent, to give them your advice, to maybe travel with them a little bit? Does that, I mean, it seems like if I were running the shop, that you'd be one of the people that I might look to give that kind of advice.
That has happened like many times before. In WWE, it hasn't, because we have our coaches, producers, and those kind of people. I ran a training school for a few years for WXW in Germany, and it's a little bit of I don't know, let's say somebody like Kaiser or even before Ilya, when we were in the same brand. Those are people that you kind of naturally have a good connection anyway, and you help each other along the way. things like that are different. But it's, I gotta say, especially right now, I don't think I would be able to really take somebody and help him along the way, because my career right now takes my full focus and my full energy. And I think in the long run, it's always better for somebody to be a teacher or a mentor to somebody that already has his prime behind him, because he can allocate more energy and more focus on the person you're mentoring. So as of right now, I feel like later on in my career, that could be something I'm up for. In general, I am when people ask. But as of right now, I'm glad I'm just focusing on myself.
You know, Gunther, character-wise, I think you're one of the most interesting performers in the entire industry, because I wouldn't necessarily call you a babyface, and I wouldn't necessarily call you a heel, because you smile. Like when the Miz is coming up to you and he's trying to get all tough and whatever, like you almost look at him like, oh man, look at this guy. He's really trying his best. You know, like it's like just like that right now. There's sort of a natural confidence that just comes with everything you do, which I don't want to boo. I'm just looking at, I'm just like, nah, I don't want to boo this guy. This guy's awesome. As far as like developing your character on the main roster and being able to tell a story that's not just in the ring, but obviously through promos and outside of the stuff, how much of that was the development throughout your career in WWE and NXT, and how much of that is just Gunther being Gunther, or you just being yourself and just being like, you know what? I'm a terrifying dude in the ring. I don't need to be all ha ha to make sure people are scared of me. Your smile is probably more scary than anything. So how much of that is you, and how much of that is just something you developed over time?
It is mostly me. I think what I do on camera is not as different from who I really am. I think in real life, I'm I'm a logic thinker. Like a lot of my decisions are based just on logic. I don't really try to make decisions on emotions. I try to judge situations objectively and not from a side already, if that makes sense. And I think that converts over to what I do in the ring, I think. I think in general, it's everybody that has been successful in this business or is like, no, I think most of them found something in their own personality that they could just take and make it work in the ring. Because if you're not acting something and it's just you, not like nobody will ever beat that authenticity that comes with it. That's just nothing you can copy that. And I think if you look at, it's a little bit funny in wrestling anyway. I feel like often a gimmick that stands out is just a catch for the people to put attention to the person. And when the attention is there, then you're just a person with the person's characteristics. Every person is different. You just said, I laugh at the Miz when he's like all tensing up. Like, it's almost cute when he tries. But how else should I react? You know what I mean? Like, what do people expect from me to react to that? So I think a lot of that has changed already. And I think it's going to do more and more as the years go by. But I think a little bit the typical heel and face role model will kind of disappear. I think we have a variety of characters now. And I feel like a lot of them are like just on paper, you would go like, oh, it's a very unlikable person, but then actually observing them and see how they react to certain things, you might connect, because nobody of us is either fully good or fully evil or something like that. So even when you look at somebody that is supposed to be like a bad person, you will find something as a viewer and be like, oh, I can relate to that. And it doesn't matter on what basis you relate to someone. As soon as you can relate somehow, you're going to have some sort of emotional connection. So it's almost impossible right now to, get everybody either on your side or against you. It will always be a little bit of a mix.
I feel like you'd relate to Thanos a lot, like Thanos in the Avengers.
Yeah, I say this now because a bunch of my friends said this to me. It's like, oh, you're like Thanos, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I should watch the movie finally, because I've never seen an Avengers movie. I think it's time to widen my horizon when it comes to that.
Yeah, you have to. We got to let you go soon, but let me ask you this. I just saw that you're 94 days away. You already beat the Honky Tonk Man's record, but now you're 94 days away from Pedro Morales' record of most combined days as Intercontinental Champion. How important is that sort of thing to you? And just hypothetically, if it was up to you and they said, you can either go the 94 days and put your name in another category in the record book, or drop the title tomorrow and get a World Heavyweight Championship match at the pay-per-view. What would you pick?
That's tricky. So you say I get a World Championship match at a pay-per-view, or?
But you have to drop the IC title before you break the streak.
No, that's not going to happen. No. I can break every streak in the world out there. I would still not trade it in because, so God will, and I will be the world champion at some point, then I will have earned it, and it will not be a handout. And that's important to me. And so I would never drop the Intercontinental Championship on purpose. It's not going to happen.
Gunther, you and Imperium live by the mantra that the mat is sacred. And obviously, it's something that you live every day, and you had to have grown up thinking it was sacred in some way, shape, or form. Who were some of the people that you were inspired by growing up that kind of lived by that mantra too, that made you say, you know what, when I get into this business, this is exactly how I want to carry myself. This is the type of champion I want to be. Who made the mat sacred to you before you sort of carried that on?
It's a good question. So I feel like in general, how I approach my own life leads to that a little bit, because, I don't know, in many aspects in life, when something has to be done, I'm the first guy that says, cut the BS, let's get to it, please. And I think that, that helped developing that, thinking in wrestling as well. But always just in general, I enjoyed it more when I enjoyed a wrestling product more when the focus was on the physicality, and everything around it enhances that. It's not one of the main attractions. So it was always, when I was training to be a wrestler, and then also in my career when I was watching guys, I would always be more drawn to Japanese wrestling, for example. I liked it way more, or old school European wrestling, because they all were just, very basic. They had the boots, they had the trunks, they had their training jacket or their coat. They looked like athletes, they looked like sportsmen, and they wanted to represent themselves as that. So, and I always found a big liking about that, because the drama for me in our sport was never in the drama around it was never in the colorful things around it, like all the enhancers. Like the drama for me always came through, the competition, when people are start getting tired after being in the ring for 10 minutes and giving it their all, when exhaustion, injuries, and all of those things kick in the match, and it becomes a real struggle. That's what always, where I felt that's when the drama aspect comes in, and people can relate to that. So since I always liked it personally more, I always tried to focus on that. And then I surrounded my whole career, surrounded myself with people thinking that way, or approaching in a similar direction. Like Kaiser's father, for example, was a wrestler already in Germany. He was a little bit of an older gentleman, so he wrestled in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Mm-hmm. So Kaiser has a lot of knowledge that from his father that influenced us, obviously. Then in the indies, the guys that was around, like, I don't know, Timothy Thatcher, Zack Sabre Jr., Daisuke Sekimoto early in my career. Those were kind of like guys that influenced me more than anybody on the screen that I watched, just working with them, and the things you learn when working together, and trial and error and all of that stuff, and seeing how some of my peers that were more advanced than I was handle mistakes or handle issues and stuff. I think those are the things that inspire me way more than having a role model in the distance, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Guys who are listening to this, if you hear that slapping, that is Gunther's massive hands clapping each other.
Oh, sorry.
No, it is good. It enhances. I needed to work in a chop question before we got into that. So I know we got to let you go soon. And Dave, I know you got one more question, but I have to ask, man, those chops have made you a household name. I almost want to say you have taken the chop from Ric Flair as the most. You kind of own it now, right? Like it has become an attraction. People come to see you slap the ever living shit out of people. I just want to know the genesis of that. When did you realize that, like, oh my gosh, I have these massive hands. These chops are gonna get a loud reaction every time. Like, when did you figure out, like, okay, this is something. This is something right here.
Yeah, it was more. Yeah, again, it was more out of logic actually, because I thought at the start of my career, it's like, okay, those are all those moves I saw on TV that look cool, and now I look at myself, it's like, okay, what makes sense for me? Let's cut what I like, what I think is super cool. Let's just see what makes sense for me. And it's like, yeah, I got pretty long legs, I got big hands, long arms, so I thought, you know what? Maybe those are the things I should do, like big boots, clotheslines, chops, and then it will be effective. So I'm glad you mentioned Ric Flair, because that's like one thing I'm kind of proud of, because in WWE, when somebody chops the other person, we'll always get the woo. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud to be able to claim that in 95% when I chop somebody, that is not the reaction I'm going to get.
It's more like a gasp than a woo now. It's like, oh
yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is impactful. So, but getting that reaction for it is fantastic, and it was what I was always aiming for, and made it my thing.
Well, Gunther, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate having you on, and dude, best of luck in holding on to the IC title, breaking that Pedro Morales record, and never letting it go, man.
Perfect. Thank you guys for having me.